What's up, everybody? This is Joe Vega, and welcome to another Flower Shop Secret podcast. Today, I'll be speaking with Lovingly's VP of Product and Growth, Daniela Marquez, about how to attract, guide, and nurture your customers. We call it the gifter's journey. Let's do it. So the big question is this: how can small business owners like us in the floral industry overcome the greed of order gatherers and bypass the deceitful games played by wire services? How do we market, sell, and deliver flowers online so we may break free from these antiquated practices and earn our freedom? Those are some of the questions we will answer on this podcast. I'm Joe Vega. Welcome to Flower Shop Secrets. Hey, Daniela, how are you?
Good. Hey, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm actually super psyched and super excited today because today we're going to be talking about something that's really, really important for all florists to be aware of.
Yeah.
And most florists are not aware of it. And it's something that they used to know by heart, but that has actually changed. And we're going to talk about that a little bit here. But the first question I have for you is, we can just reveal what it is. It's actually, we're going to be talking about the customer journey. And we're going to be also talking about how we changed the name of the customer journey to something else that makes a little bit more, not a little bit, a lot more sense
For sure.
for the florist, for the gift giver. That was a clue. Can you define for us what the customer journey is?
Totally. So the customer journey, basically, it's a end-to-end representation of what a consumer goes through when they're interacting with your product or your service, right? So in our case, it's, that experience from the moment of like, I want to buy flowers, all the interactions they have from searching Google, getting onto the website, going through the purchase, and really understanding each touch point, each interaction, the holistic experience that the customer goes through. It's their journey, right? From their perspective of how they go through whatever process it is. So in this case, buying flowers online.
Okay. And why should florists care?
This is huge, right? Because a lot of times, well, let's put it the most basic way. Why do we care? Because the consumer has the money, right?
Right, of course.
That, like, if we want to make the consumer buy, we have to enhance their customer journey so that they end up actually putting their credit card number in on the website and buying. That's the sort of transactional reason.
Okay.
The other side of it, though, is like these moments throughout really change the perception of the customer, right? So they can start to have like, oh, that was really cool. That was helpful. Oh, you're guiding me. And then they start to develop an affinity or delight or whatever that emotion is and associate that with the brand. So understanding what happens at each one of these touch points not only allows a better experience for the consumer, which is always good, but it helps them along the way so that they do what we want them to do, which is ultimately make that purchase, and as well develop that affinity with that experience so that they come back again and again.
Perfect. So how has the customer journey changed once the internet started taking off?
Oh my goodness. So it's so like these are two vastly different customer experiences, right? So pre-internet world, the florist was part of the customer journey, right? Like a consumer would walk in the door and that first hello, that first interaction was the florist guiding the consumer throughout the entire experience.
Right.
In fact, they even got to learn the backstory, let's say, of that consumer, right? Like, what are they going through right now? What's their relationship like? Is it the third date or they've been together for 10 years, and knowing those nuances and sort of like any doubt that the consumer has, the florist is able to resolve that. They're having a conversation, they're working through that. And the florist is there to guide the customer journey. The same thing happens on the phone, right? You still have that conversation. They're a part of it. Unfortunately, now, if you look in the online world, the consumer is left to their own devices. Right. They don't have that guidance. They're responsible for driving their own journey. They have to click on the right things. They have to know what's happening. They have to sort of get the credit card out and put it in. so they're kind of on their own. So in a nutshell, pre-internet, the customer journey was a very tailored, guided concierge experience in which the florist was there to hold their hand basically through that.
Right.
And now in the online world, it's a very digital experience where the consumer has to do their own thing. And so the experience of the website is what's dictating and driving the customer journey in the online world.
So you're talking about the customer journey once the customer is either, talking to the flower shop, either by phone or in person. But the customer journey also had a big role to play before that interaction even happened, right? It had a role to
True.
play in advertising or in marketing. How was it before, in terms of how do florists before the internet attracted customers so that they can provide that positive user experience and contribute to that customer journey before the internet?
Totally. So the advertising or that attraction really that happened beforehand was really offline methods. So either radio or the yellow pages. I was about to say Yelp. I was like, that's not right. Those are yellow pages.
Yeah,
So that's
no,
so trained. I'm like,
yeah. They both start with a Y.
They both start with the Y. It's very good branding by Yelp. So, there were these basically attempts to get into the mind of the customer, but all those places were sort of they weren't interrupting. Let's just say radio kind of, if you were listening to radio, you'd have to be at the right time to listen to it. Yellow pages, you have to actually go to the yellow pages to get the ad. So it's a little bit of a different model versus now you're online, you can be like you're doing your daily, Facebook scroll or whatever it is.
Right.
And then you can sort of start to get an ad that gets served for you, or you have a high intent search. Like, I know that I need flowers because it's my mom's birthday. I'm doing a search. And now with Google advertising, you can actually answer that question right then and there, which wasn't really possible before.
So how has that changed now that the internet came along? It's no longer a fad. I know a lot of people in the 90s were like, it's gonna pass. It didn't. It literally changed it literally changed the world.
Yeah.
It also changed consumer behavior, right? So how has the internet play a role in the customer journey now?
How advertising or how the internet has changed consumer behavior is that expectation, right? I can ask anything and I'm going to get it instantly.
Right.
And now what Google has done is, invited all these players to come give Google more money, and Google rewards them for placement. And that's Google Ads, essentially. And so because Google is so now well known and has built trust with consumers because their algorithm has worked to provide better and better results, like at the top, the lazy consumer isn't going to go to page 10 to find their results.
Page 10, then I'm going to go to page 2.
Well, yes, the point. They're going to trust what Google's saying, that these are the best results at the top.
Right.
So that's where the game is, right? Whether it's on the advertising side or the organic or the local pack, you want to be high up, because the consumer behavior, what they want is that, immediate response, that instant gratification of getting the best result at the top. And that's what they're going to click.
Okay. And do you believe that order gatherers or wire services understanding of the new customer's journey is a benefit to them? To order gatherers and wire services.
Yeah, well, it's a benefit to the order gatherers and wire services. They're winning the game right now, right? Because they know the online world. It's a detriment to the consumer and to the local florist.
Right.
Right. Because basically what has happened, the order gatherers and wire services have understood the game, that it's a money game. And the more you pay Google, then you're showing up there at the top. And that's what the consumer is sort of leaning toward. And so the ridiculous amount of advertising spend that they have from a budget perspective on a monthly basis, it's ridiculous, right? So they're buying their spot there at the top.
What kind of money are we talking about? Like, what do you mean by that?
Like millions of dollars. a month.
Monthly.
A month.
Okay. That's a lot of money. I don't think your regular florist has that type of money to be able
No,
to compete that.
unfortunately, I would. I wish we did, but
Yeah. All right. So we've been talking about the customer journey and what it is and how it plays a role in the floor industry for florists and order gatherers and wire services. And it's an established concept, right? It's got many different stages. You have customers depending on the stage that they're in. But at the end of the day, it's all about making sure that the customer has the best user experience so that they can finish the process, and therefore making whichever business decided to work best and define the best user experience of the customer for the customer journey, they're going to end up winning at the end because they're going to get the most orders and so on and so forth. So we have the customer journey and we have our very own sort of different take on that, right?
yeah,
So here's the big reveal. What do we call the customer journey and why?
we call it the gifter's journey.
Okay.
So
Wait a
looking
minute.
at
Isn't customer and gifters the same?
well, yes, they are customers,
Okay.
but the intent of what they're doing, they're not just buying shoes or a T-shirt or some sort of e-commerce thing that's they're buying for themselves, for example.
Right.
The emotional state that you're in when you're buying a gift is different,
Okay.
right? Basically, what you're desiring when you give a gift, whether you admit it or not, you're desiring some sort of kudos or benefit or status increase with your recipient.
Okay.
You want to look good.
Right.
Actually, Joe, you just went through this today.
Yes, I did.
Right? Like you made your
Yes.
wife open the door because you wanted her to feel good. You
Okay.
wanted
Yeah,
to
sure.
look
I'll
good.
tell the story. I
Okay,
think you're
go
giving
ahead.
me a hint there. So right before we started recording this podcast, I had to pause it and I had to open the door because the doorbell rang, and it was I saw it from the window. There was flowers that we've ordered for my wife. It's her birthday today. And instead of opening the door, I just went and I told my wife there's somebody at the door, and she's like, well, why didn't you get it? And I'm like, just get the door. And she's like, she couldn't understand why I didn't just get the door. And she wasn't too happy about it. However, once she opened, the minute she noticed that there was flowers there, her tune changed completely. Like, oh my God, this is wonderful. This is great. So it was just, flowers have that power, you know? So that's what just happened.
For
So
sure.
she was very
But
happy.
you wanted that experience for her, right?
I didn't want to open the door, actually, bring her the flower. I wanted her to be surprised. I wanted her, the recipient, to actually experience receiving the flowers as a surprise.
Right. And it made you feel good when she was happy and surprised, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're on cloud nine, you're like, good job, Joe. Like everyone does,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I think that sort of what you just described, that's really why the name Gifter's Journey is important, because we're taking something that's like a transactional experience through all these stages in the buying experience, but it's really about giving a gift. It's really about understanding that sentiment before you gave the gift, like what you wanted, what you were thinking about, and all the way until like that moment where you got to see the delight and you got to be like, I did good, and then beyond. So like we really, really want to understand the entire life cycle end to end from that emotional perspective that the consumer is going through their gifting life cycle. Because when we do that, we can make better decisions. We can build better products and services. We can start to, learn from the offline experience when the florist was guiding that customer in the shop, and try to bring those little micro experiences into the online world. We can never replicate a human perfectly until, AI fully takes over, but we can learn from that. And I think there's one word that really brings it home, and that's guidance.
Okay.
Right? Anything that we can do to guide that consumer along the way is going to be helpful, just to get them to that next step, take that next step, take that next step. But the mindset is the most important. And the mindset, the whole context that we're in is gift giving. That's what's happening. So that's the reason for the name Gifter's Journey.
Okay, I like it. So The gifter's journey, if I can recap what you said, if I can just so that I can understand it better. It's um, regular customer journey has a lot to do with, it's a term that's been used for a long time now, and that has to do with customers experiencing the entire journey from, seeing someone's ad to calling a business to placing an order, and that's pretty simple, right? But when it comes to gift giving, the process is a lot longer than that, right? You're not buying something for yourself. You're not buying sneakers or a phone or a mug, or those things are pretty easy. You know your address, um, you have your credit card on you. It's pretty simple. But when you're sending a gift, the experience is actually 2.5 times longer, right? Because not only do you need to know your own information, but you also need to know the recipient's information. You need to know the recipient's address. You need to know what to write in the card message. And according to our own data, that's the hardest step, right? People expressing themselves, right? So not only do you have the product or the gift, which is the flowers, but you also have to guide the customer to write a proper sentiment. And then there's the delivery. And then it doesn't end there, right? Like it doesn't end when people just send a gift and the florist delivers the flowers, right? There's
Yeah.
actually two other steps. Can you talk about those two other steps?
Sure. So I want to, you hit on like the first three, and I really like, I want to
Mhm.
dive into each one to sort of do the big reveal of the
Let's do
last
it.
two, because I think
Absolutely.
there's a lot to like, this is kind of like the umbrella 5 stages of the gifter's journey, right?
Mm,
So, and I think what's important for folks to realize is like, everyone plays in the space of the gift. Like that's what we're talking about. There is the product, right? The artistry that comes into creating this thing. But you hit on it. Like the sentiment is what really completes that gift, right? That
right.
card message. And if you look at like the hallmarks of the world, they really nail that sentiment, right? You like peruse the aisles and you find that one card and you're like, oh my God, they're gonna love this.
Yeah, they nailed it so strong that in a supermarket there's an entire aisle dedicated just to them.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And
so
you like, you don't even need to buy a card, and you find yourself looking through them and like giggling or laughing. Like it's entertaining
right.
almost, right? Um, but if you get a card as just a gift, it's kind of like you're a little bit of a cheapskate. And you're like, I have to put a gift card or something in it to like make it full, right?
Right.
And in a lot of the, you know, let's say gifting websites who have a card message, it's kind of an afterthought, like, oh crap, now I have to write a card message.
Right.
And so like something that brings the two together and into a really holistic way is really the best gift. So for example, let's say it's your mom's birthday. There's two identical arrangements.
Right.
One card message says, happy birthday, mom. The other card message says, thank you so much for everything you've done for me, mom. You've made such an impact in my life. You're a role model. I've learned so much. On this birthday, I really want to send you blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Which gift is going to be better?
The second one.
Yeah, hands down,
Yes.
right? Like the product looks exactly the same, but that sentiment, that's what really drives it home. It's the totality of that gift that really makes it important. So,
Right.
really understanding what's going on in that mindset of the customer, right? They're nervous about writing the best card message because they're like, oh crap, I want to make that impression, but they don't know how
Or you
because
could
they're
say the
not a
wrong thing.
poet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So providing that support and that guidance, right? And one of the things obviously we do is we have those card message suggestions. So it's like you can combine them, you can take a little piece from here or there, or have those little inspiration tidbits that really allow that consumer to feel at ease. It's like, I don't have to worry about this. Like I have help right along the way. That's a huge, huge, huge piece of that gifter's life cycle because of how important we know it is, right, to get that sentiment right.
So that was the second one, right?
Yeah. Next is delivery, and this is kind of like a phrase we like to say around here: permission to play.
Right.
You just have to get it right. You don't get any kudos for like making the delivery happen on time.
Exactly.
You get in trouble if it's late,
Right.
right?
That's pretty
So
transactional.
it's
Just do
pretty
that.
transactional,
Yeah.
right? The only other side here to delivery is my new potential favorite phrase, which is friends don't let friends send flowers in a box.
That's right.
So yeah, we'll have to use that. But I think, it's just delivery is more transactional. You just got to get it done.
Right.
And now we get to the point where you were talking about the big reveal. So what happens right after that delivery is made?
Right.
Right. And now we introduce a new persona into the gifter's life cycle.
Okay.
It's the recipient, because they're actually getting it, right?
You mean to tell me a florist's job is not done once they deliver the flowers?
Nope, not at all.
Okay.
It continues.
What should happen? Okay.
So now what happens? So the delivery driver, this is a perfect example. It just happened right now, right?
Yeah.
Your wife got the flowers and was like, oh, like that moment, that delight, that surprise, that awe, that gratitude. How can we capture that? Because that's the whole reason that you send out a gift to begin with. So
Right.
we really want to be able to make that whole life cycle come true. Right. And so we have, we've developed that thank you application so that the recipient can take a picture, write a message, and send that back. But I feel like this is just scratching the surface of what's possible in this stage to really sort of allow that actually the celebration's next, but that gratitude, that feeling of what the recipient is feeling, and let the sender know, and let the florist be able to participate. How can we get better reviews? How can we, actually get user-generated content from that moment? And it's not just the flower delivery. It's actually an opportunity for viral content, which actually moves into like the celebration stage. It moves beyond just the sender and the recipient. There's people's friends, people's communities. Let's say the birth of a new baby, right? That's not just one single event. There's lots of people participating in that. And I think, there's so much that can happen here when we invite the community to celebrate, and we can show, the benefit of what the florist did, which is this beautiful artwork, but it goes beyond. It's like this relationship between these two people and their community that's being able to be celebrated on a larger scale.
Okay, just to play devil's advocate for a second, some florists would say, well, that already happens. That's the responsibility of the recipient. What would you say to that?
It sometimes happens offline, but it's like it's maybe a text message here or a call here, but then it just ends there, right? So if we're able to provide the guidance for how to do it the best way, right? Create the picture, write the message, send it back. Now provide a mechanism for that to share on social media, let's say, so that it becomes visible. What happens is a few things. We're nudging them or guiding them to be able to write a better thank you message, right? We already guided the sender to write a good card message. Now we can guide the recipient to really be able to express themselves. And here's the thing. This is the most important part of that. If someone just sends a text message back to their sender to say thank you, great. I mean, I prefer that they do something, so that's good. But the florist doesn't get to participate in that. If it's something that we post on social media, and now because we're sort of orchestrating or helping all this process happen, we know who the florist is. We can start to tag the local florist. Now everyone gets to play and celebrate. Now somebody else who had nothing to do with this, who's on Facebook scrolling, sees like, oh my gosh, that's a beautiful arrangement. I want that. And sees, oh, such and such florist down the street. Like next time I know I need to send with them. So it allows this whole community sort of visibility to play in together in a way that doesn't happen when you just send a thanks for the flowers, goodbye text message.
That makes a lot of sense because today more than ever we live in a social media by itself. That's all that is a huge community, right? So sharing that there is important. Speed matters as well, right? If we don't provide any guidance, or if we don't nudge the recipient to actually say thank you to the customer, what happens is the customer, a lot of times, one of the biggest complaints about the florists have is when their phone rings and they think it's an order, but it's just someone asking, did they get it yet? Because the recipient hasn't gotten back to the customer, right?
Right.
So speed matters. So could you talk about exactly what are the tips or tricks that we do to make sure that we expedite the thank you process?
For sure. So like the nudge that happens to start that thank you process is literally right in the card message. So as the recipient is taking, like looking at the beautiful flowers, they're reading the card message, they flip it over, they see that QR code right then and there. So it's kind of like, hey, you're loving this right now. Take care of this right now, right? So it's kind of like that sense of urgency of capitalizing on that high from the recipient side is there. Because what happens, I mean, this is anecdotally, but I know that I'm totally guilty of this. I'm like, oh, I need to do that. I'll worry about that later, right? If I don't
Yeah.
have an easy path of someone saying, this is step one, this is step two, just do it, I'm a little bit lazy. And I will like, I'll get to it later, right? And
Right.
then that creates this problem in which it's like, I end up calling the florist to then figure out what happened rather than just getting that.
Yeah, I think I literally hearing you say that, I think we're gonna just coin a new term, and that is the gifter's anxiety.
Yeah,
Because that's
totally,
exactly what's happening. It's like it's not even like for romantic relationships. It also has to do with like business deals. It's like,
for
hey, you send
sure.
flowers. What, we're trying to land that good account or whatever. And, you want to be able to. You need to, once you send a gift, the most important thing at that point is to get feedback.
Yep.
Period. Without that feedback, good or bad, there's an empty hole there that it needs to get fulfilled. So we do everything in our power to make sure that feedback is filled
Yeah.
as quickly as possible. Okay.
It's funny hearing you say that because that's like really another part of the gifter's journey. If you look at the emotion, like again, why we do this, we want to understand the emotional state of the sender throughout the entire process, right? So the moment they actually buy, they click send, or the transaction is complete.
Right.
There's a little bit of a high right there because they did it. They like checked off the job on the to-do list. They needed to send flowers for their aunt's birthday, whatever that was. There's a moment of goodwill that's right then and there.
Right.
But it starts to fade.
Right.
Because they're not really done.
Right.
Because they haven't actually gotten the benefit of like, did they like it? Did it get there? All those questions that they're having of like, oh crap, like, wait, are they really going to like it? All that doubt starts to creep in as time
Right.
goes on from the moment of the purchase on. And that's what this really tries to solve is like, okay, let's say it is the same day delivery or next day, or whatever, reduce that gap of anxiety time so that you're getting the feedback, not just that it was delivered, not just that it was good, but that smile, like a picture's worth 1,000 words, totally
Right.
true in this case. Getting just a thanks for the flowers, okay, great. But you see a smile with like the flowers and everything, you're like, I did good. I did
Yeah.
good,
Awesome. Uh, in addition to all that, there's also a QR code for the delivery driver to actually mark the order deliver on the spot, right?
Right.
How does that work?
So it's pretty simple. It's really great, right? Because one of the things that happens for delivery too. So the other side of it too, right, is we want to get the sender feeling good that they made that person happy.
Mm-hmm.
And once they do that, we also want to capitalize on the fact that now the sender knows that they did good, the recipient's happy, they're likely to give a good review.
Right.
So when the delivery driver scans that, what happens is it marks the order delivered, and that automatically fires off an email back to the sender saying, hey, it was delivered. Do you mind telling us how it went? So now imagine that. They got the image of the smiling recipient with their flowers. They're happy. They're like, yes, I did it. And now, like, because that's marked delivered, hey, do you mind letting us know how it went? Absolutely. The flowers were amazing. So-and-so was so happy. The blah, 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 blah. Like, all that is timed to sort of maximize the best experience and the best goodwill for any of the content that we're asking for from the senders.
Right. Well, timing is everything, right? That's what
Yeah.
they say. So, and what is the last step in the gifter's journey?
So celebration.
Okay. What is that?
So basically, it's trying to take that gratitude feeling and expand it beyond just the sender and the recipient.
Okay.
Right? So there's so many people involved, right? The florist made it possible. There's a community who's celebrating at large. So this is, I think I was starting to give the example before, like a new baby who a birth in the family. This is a huge moment where lots of people come in to celebrate. And I think what's important here is that, a lot of times, well, especially now during COVID, where we can't actually go out and have these social events where we're clued into things that are happening in our community. Social media is not the full replacement, but it is a way that we can sort of get visibility into life's moments and things. So in that light, imagine someone just posted their thank you message on social media saying, oh my gosh, thanks so much for thinking of us. Like, we're so, we're sleep deprived and whatever with our new baby, but we're so in love and we love these gorgeous flowers. Now, someone who's a friend who maybe you would have bumped into each other at the cafe, you're not doing that now, but you see that post, and it could be as simple as, them writing something in that thread and engaging with that people, or being inspired to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it had a new baby. Let me also participate. I want to get them something as well. And so then they can see who that florist was. Maybe they buy from flowers again. So it just enhances the whole experience for everyone to come in and play, and just be able to celebrate that human moment together.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to see people just smiling with the flowers that they receive, right? And for some strange reason, we've discovered that a lot of people love to put in, instead of them being on camera, they'd like to take a pictures of their dog next to the flowers, which is, I find hilarious. And
So
customers
long
love
as
it
they're
because
safe flowers for pets, but yes.
yeah. And which is great, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about the journey,
Yeah.
Flowers are the critical part of that process, but it's just a part, right? It's a lot bigger than that. The flowers are just the tool, the main tool. But like you said, there's also the delivery. There's this, not only is the product slash gift slash flowers, which is what florists actually arrange and deliver, but there's also the sentiment, which you hit on, in terms of the making sure that customers are able to express themselves.
Right.
Because you can send a beautiful card, you could send a beautiful arrangement, or if you say something that was like, you may not get that much love back. But if you send an okay arrangement, but you just blow them away with the card message, it's almost like the card message is like extra credit. It's gonna help you one way or another, so you might as well do it, right?
Right.
Then it's a delivery, then gratitude, and then it's celebration. Awesome. So that's the gifter's journey right there in a nutshell. So how does the gifter's journey play a role in florists taking back the industry from order gatherers?
So, I mean, there's a couple different sort of smaller nuanced ideas there, like on a micro level, right? Understanding, because we kind of covered the gifter's journey at a broad sense through these 5 stages.
Right.
If you really, break it down even further, like, we're literally taking every single step that a consumer is taking throughout the entire process, and knowing what we need to do to serve the customer to give them the best experience at that moment, right?
Right.
So, and like, so there's little things in that sort of both the solution from the website can do, which we're taking care of, right? As well as things that the florist has control over that they can do that provide a better experience. For example, right? Pricing of products, right? One of the steps that happens, and this is very early on in the gifter's journey, is landing on the homepage. What's something that we control? We control the speed from the technology for how fast that website loads. Because we know that, like, speed is critical. You need to be able to make an instant determination. Did I land in the right place? That's what the consumer is asking. Right. I know that I need to get flowers. Am I able to get the gift that I need here?
Right.
So we control the technology. We make sure that they can answer that in, within a few seconds, because if they can't, they're not going to stick around. We know that people are impatient. It's the land of the internet. They're going to go,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? So we do our part, but then we look at, let's say, pricing or product selection. Like if it's February 17th, 18th, whatever, and you still have Valentine's Day products on your homepage, again, that's not going to help. Or your prices are so wildly outside of the range of what's expected for that town or that demographic, again, you're going to have a bad experience. So florists have control over pieces of the gifter's journey, and in tandem, this is where this partnership that we always talk about comes into play. Like we need to work together to have the best possible experience at each stage along the way. But holistically, and maybe this is where you were going, like how can we actually like make a dent in, by knowing the gifter's journey now and finding the order gatherers really moves up the chain to that sort of that attraction phase, like when we're trying to attract new consumers into the website, like we know they want to buy, and that comes down to the advertising.
Right.
Right. And we already talked about the order gatherers having ridiculous, budgets to spend, and the behavior of the consumer is typically just click the first thing at the top because I don't have much time. I want to go and get my thing done. So this kind of harkens back to our earlier conversation a week or so ago, which is really, our banding together, coming together as an industry with all of our moment makers to fight back against the order gatherers, and doing that through advertising and being able to reinvest a portion of the sales that are happening so that we can start to make a dent and fight against that spend.
Perfect. Yeah, the way I see the gifter's journey is also like a map, right? It's the map. The map has instructions on actually making it all happen. And from the florist perspective, they have access to this map and they are a huge part of it, but most of them are unaware of the rest of the map. So a lot of times they make decisions because their perspective is telling them that this is the right decision, but because they're not aware of for the rest of the map, it may actually be the wrong decision. And that's something that we need to do a better job of communicating to the florist industry about the gifter's journey is critical for florists to succeed and take back the industry.
For sure. And I think another thing that sometimes I've seen happen, and I completely see how it can happen, like when somebody calls, let's say a consumer, and they're angry,
right,
that weighs so much more because you're listening to it, and you have someone that you want to appease, right? You have an angry customer, they're having some problem, but and that can be like for one particular phase, like they tried to click a button and it's not working, and whatever it is, they're pissed off, right? You get an angry call. The problem with sort of letting that dominate, what the whole landscape of the gifter's journey is, that's one person and that's one experience. But when we created the gifter's journey to understand this map, we're looking at the holistic, data. We're looking at Google Analytics, so we know all the consumer behavior at scale, and at scale to make the right decision to move them to that next phase.
Right.
So I think that sometimes it's hard because the florists don't get to see like what we see in terms of the holistic data of the consumer behavior online at scale. They're getting that angry call. I get it, because like if someone's yelling at me, I want to make them happy.
That's how we're wired, right?
We're wired to do that. But I think it's an easy pitfall because we're wired to do that. But I think the gifter's journey, looking at it holistically, why that was created was to look at, making the best decision to move consumers at each stage of the process using that sort of big data.
So the way I hear you saying it, it's almost like a blind spot, right? It's like, and we're, like I said, we're wired to, this negativity bias, and we all have it, right? You can get 99 compliments on the shirt that you're wearing, and then you have somebody saying that they, why did you even buy that shirt? That thing is ugly. Like for the rest of the day,
the shirt out.
you're gonna be thinking about like, well, why didn't that person like my shirt? And that's normal. It happens to me. It happens to you. That's just how we're wired. That's okay. I think that comes from like the
the caveman times where like you had to remember where there was a bear or a tiger around which mountain, like
I guess I don't like it, but it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes more effort to remember the positive things. I mean, I think that's
sure.
important for our survival. It's like we got to remember the negative things, right?
Right.
But the thing is that when it comes to, the gifter's journey, it, like you said, we take a holistic approach or holistic view as to how the entire map looks like. And that's important. And my hopes are that we are able to communicate how that looks like so that others can see that map.
Right.
We've played around with a few different designs, and pretty soon we're going to hopefully complete that project where we're going to be able to print it out on a big giant poster, for example, so that people can actually, florists can actually see what's happening. Because something that happens is some florists, it's important for florists to actually see the entire value of what it is to be a lovingly moment maker, right? It's not just about, us providing technical services. It's much, much more than that. So I'm really excited for that. Is there anything else you like to add in regards to the gifter's journey at all?
I think one of the, we kind of went over those different phases of gift, sentiment, delivery, gratitude, celebration. But, it really, the simplest way to think about it, what's really happening is these three things. Like, we're attracting customers, we're guiding them, and then we're nurturing them. So attract, guide, nurture. That's kind of like the simplest way to, like, if there's one takeaway from the gifter's journey of like, I can't remember all the stuff that we talked about. It's really about attracting customers, guiding them, and nurturing them. And really that captures that holistic sense of what we're trying to do. And we're doing it through a partnership, right? To your point, it's like we do much more than just a technical side of it. We have this holistic view, and that allows us to work with our local florists to provide that combined best experience so that we get that moment between the sender and the recipient.
Cool. Thank you for that. I think the last thing I'll say to that on this topic is, order gatherers know this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the secret, right? Most florists are unaware of this or how it all works. And we're pulling the curtain, right? We're showing you guys exactly how it works so that we can, we're going to be stronger together. So it's important for everyone to be aware of what's happening in order to, really take back the industry. So I'm really excited about that.
For sure. Like, this shouldn't be a secret. There's no reason why only the order gatherers should know this. Like, this is so pivotal to success, because now everybody can make better decisions at every stage along the way, right, to provide a better experience for the customers. If we're providing a better experience for the customers, they're buying. And if they're buying, we all win.
I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining me, Daniela.
Thanks, Joe.
Take care.
For more episodes of Flower Shop Secrets, subscribe to my YouTube channel or check us out at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more.